Hey everybody, welcome to another one of our awesome tech videos. I am Paige Libert. I'm one of the consumer technology specialists here at Mid-Continent Public Library. And today we're going to talk about cloud storage. I'm at least going to try and introduce the topic because it can be kind of a big topic. So without that, next up. So what you're going to need to use cloud storage in any way, shape, or form, you'll need a computer or a mobile device. A lot of the services I'm going to talk about today, and several that I don't talk about but that exist, do have mobile apps that you can use, but you can always access it on the computer. You do need to have an internet connection. Doesn't matter what flavor of internet connection, so wired, wireless, mobile data, hotspot data, any of those things, as long as you have a connection to the internet, and usually at least a decent speed. So if you're still on dial-up, might have a hard time getting some of this stuff uploaded or downloaded, but uh, typically as long as you've got an internet connection, you'll be fine. You'll need some login credentials. So the services I'm going to talk about today, all of them have individual login credentials. You can create accounts with all of them using just usually a Gmail account or an email account of any kind, your name, some of that basic information. And then payment, maybe. So everything I'm going to talk about today usually has a free tier of some description. And then at some point in time, once you kind of outgrow that free tier, it is possible that you would need to upgrade into a subscription for more space. So we'll talk a little bit about that as I go on, but just wanted to bring that up now. So first things first, what is the cloud? And I know a lot of people have that question when I've mentioned cloud storage, or they want to know what the cloud is. First thing that I usually say, and we'll say today, it's not actually a cloud. I know a lot of people immediately think of, in the sky above their heads when they're thinking about information or data transferring on the internet. And in some cases, that is true because some of it does use satellites, but in many cases, it's just happening all around you. It just sort of happens. It's not necessarily in the sky or not literally a cloud. Instead, what cloud storage is usually referring to is a cloud of computers, and in this case, massive computers called servers. They are owned by various companies, and a lot of times these are the companies that are doing the cloud storage services, and they allow you to store your files on their giant computers instead of your own. So essentially, it's kind of like a digital flash drive, but huge. So you can store your files there. You upload them via the internet, and that's actually how you access them. Once you've loaded them to a cloud storage service, you access all of those services through the internet, which is why I said you would need to have an internet connection. They're available 24/7 as long as you have an internet connection, despite or unless there's some kind of crazy outage. But you'll be able to access those documents at any point as long as you've got a connection. A lot of times you can use it through a browser or an app. Some of them actually allow you to edit documents. Most of the ones I'm going to show you today actually do have an option for editing. You can even do live editing with groups, which is kind of a really cool thing. So that's kind of loosely what it is. It's actually a lot of people when they talk about it, they talk about cloud computing, kind of the same idea. Not quite, but it's essentially just a connection of computers or a collection of computers that are all kind of connected together. In this case, you're connecting your computer via the internet to these companies' massive servers that are all over the world. I think Google even has some servers that are maybe in the ocean. I'm not sure. They're all over the place, which is pretty cool. So who is the cloud? I'm going to go through a lot of these so you can see their sites a little bit later on. But the big names that are kind of in cloud storage right now, Google, they have Google Drive, Microsoft with OneDrive, Apple with their iCloud. Amazon used to be a bigger player in it. Now they kind of just have Amazon Photos. We'll take a look at that, but that is an option. There's Dropbox, which a lot of people are familiar with, and then there's just straight up Box. There's tons of other ones out there. Just a quick Google search showed me that there are tons out there, and they vary on level of storage space, what they can do. Some of them offer a lot more security than others. So there's some really high security ones that are out there, but they do tend to have some more subscription fees and that sort of thing. So just kind of keep that in mind if you go and look at these cloud storage services, to kind of pick and choose based on your needs, because everybody's needs are different. Sometimes it's just convenience. Other times they're really looking for something super duper extra secure. So just kind of take that into account if you look at these services. And the other thing I kind of want to cover before I dive into actually looking at the individual services is the concerns with the cloud. I know a lot of people, when they hear cloud storage and they know that it's all internet based, cringe, or I see the hackles go up. Um, and so there are some ways to get around some of the scary things. I know it's bottom on the list, but the first thing I want to talk about is actually hackers. I know there's a huge concern for a lot of people because for a long time, hacking was a really big deal. It was really easy to hack accounts, and information wasn't super secure. And we do still hear in the news about, companies having data breaches and that sort of thing. Um, so what I kind of want to say is that hackers are not usually trying to get one individual's information. So they're not going in just to try and find your stuff unless there is some reason that they would want to find you. So if you popped on Facebook and broadcast that you just won the lottery, yeah, they might be trying to find you specifically. But for the most part, they're just trying to get the most amount of information possible with the least amount of effort. So they're usually going after larger companies, more often with kind of looser security, or if they know like any security gaps in their information storage. So though it is not completely unheard of, it is actually very rare for major companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, to have these kind of data breaches. And in many cases, that information that they're looking for is not so much your files, but your name, your phone number, your email address, those sorts of things, so they can sell it. So a lot of times it's not your files even that they're after. It's just you, your information, so that they can sell you to telemarketers, which is kind of a stinky thing, but that's usually what's up. So hacking, while it is an option and data breaches is a thing, it is really not a huge concern when it comes to the cloud storage spaces. If you are concerned about some safety, so other people finding your information, especially if for whatever reason maybe your information was in a different data breach, that's your information security. That is going to be your passwords. Setting really strong and secure passwords is a major selling point and saving point when it comes to a lot of issues on the internet. A lot of people, sometimes myself included, don't set very strong passwords. A lot of times they are dealing with, or they choose something that's easy to remember. So one of the most popular and worst passwords ever is like 123456789, or just the word password with like a zero behind it. And I know a lot of companies, if you work for them and have to set a password, a lot of times they have to be changed a certain amount of time. And I'm guilty of it too, but setting that one favorite password and then just changing the number at the end when you have to change it, not really the greatest or most secure plan in the world. So a lot of times when it comes to setting passwords, the best ideas usually come from having longer passwords. So anywhere up to 14, 16, 20 characters, something that you can remember, but longer. Don't use your personal information. So your name, your first name, last name, a child's name, birth dates, pets' names, streets that you used to live on, things that are kind of easy to find on a basic internet search. If I search my name on Google, I can find all kinds of information about where I've lived, what my birthday is, my email addresses, aliases, friends that I've known. So take that into account. Information that's easy to find, maybe not so great for your password. Some other things, though, when you're writing passwords, there's something called leet speak, which is kind of changing letters into numbers and symbols that look similar. So that'd be like changing an E to a 3 or an I to an exclamation point. That does help with the security some. You can also do things like phrases. So you could do an entire phrase. I used to work with a coworker who would do an entire Bible verse, word for word, to kind of help her set those more secure passwords. And then you can always shorten those phrases. So if you do want to use a phrase like I can ski forever or something along those lines, you could break that down into maybe the first letter of each thing with an exclamation point and then an asterisk somewhere in there. Just make it really hard to guess. Quite literally, there are guessing or like password searching algorithms. They'll just kind of churn through a bunch of ideas. So you basically make it really, really, really hard for those things to come up with the correct information. So that's just kind of something to maybe help you out and maybe give you a little bit more peace of mind. The other big thing with passwords is to not give it out. If somebody gives you a call, maybe don't just tell them your password. A lot of times, the best ideas, or that I've heard, the ideas that I've heard is to maybe pick one or two. So if you're worried about not remembering it, or that hit by a bus scenario of, oh no, who's going to be able to access my accounts if I'm gone, is picking one or two trusted people to know those passwords. Or if you do need to write it down, we know, I know for sure I need to write certain passwords down that are kind of crazy characters. You could write it down, but then store it in a place that is not easily found. Something along those lines, and let that one or two emergency people know where to find those sorts of things. Another thing is password keepers. So you can use, Google has a password saver, password keeper. There's things like LastPass, and a couple other websites like that that are literally will store your passwords for you. So the only password you have to remember is the one website that actually stores your passwords, and then you can go in and find all of your forgotten ones. I use several because I'm very good at forgetting my passwords when I set the really elaborate ones. Another one is encryption. So that will actually is more about securing your data as it transfers. It's used more for emails, less so for kind of uploading and downloading to cloud storage. But a lot of the services do have some level of encryption available. Just how much usually varies depending on your subscription and the service itself. But what encryption does essentially just kind of turns your file or your document, the data of it, into just a messy jumble based on some kind of crazy key. And the only way to essentially decrypt is to have that key, and the only way to get that key is with a certain credential. A lot of times that's going to be a username and password. So that's kind of how that works. And then last but not least, with the concerns with the cloud, is search and seizure. So stuff that is in the cloud or in a cloud storage is not immune from search and seizure. So if there's something that you were hoping to store away from the eyes of the government, that is not going to be the place to do it. So however information stored there, they're not just going to be like, oh, okay, so there's something wrong with this person, here's all the information. They do actually have to have, in many cases, a subpoena and possibly a bit more just to have access to any of those files. So now we're going to explore the actual sites themselves, because I figure why not? And I'm going to start out here on Google Drive. So Google, is Google. They have all the things. Google Drive is their primary cloud storage service. That's where you can store all of your kind of classic files, and they do all of the main file types. So Word docs, documents created in Drive itself, PDFs, photos. I have stored videos in here. As far as I know, they can even store things that are based in other file formats. So things that are coming from your Mac, even though it is not necessarily the same or similar file types. But if you have like an iMovie or a Pages document, I do believe they can save those as well. So this is kind of a very quick look at Google Drive itself, so you can kind of see how it is laid out. You can choose how it's laid out over here on the right-hand side. I choose to do this kind of version, but you could do the list view as well. That just basically shows you all of your documents in a line, kind of like if you were looking in your File Explorer. So you can go, just a quick tour. They usually give you a little image of the documents, so you can kind of get an idea of what's actually in them, which is nice. You can create folders to store stuff in an organized fashion. I, in my personal account, have tons of folders and then tons of documents for various things. Big thing I want to point out over here on the left is the storage. So you can see that we have used 2.3 gigabytes of 15 gigabytes. So Google gives users 15 gigabytes of free storage space. This includes everything in Google Drive, your emails, and photos. Photos is changing, I believe, in June, but soon they'll be including a lot of your photos in that storage space as well, depending on the type of Google user you are. I think it's Pixel users, their phone, that are getting a bit more storage space for their photos. The nice thing about Google Drive, if I click this new button right here, you can actually create documents and files within Google Drive. So you can do Docs, which is their version of Microsoft Word, Sheets, which is spreadsheet or it's Excel, Slides is PowerPoint, Forms is like questionnaires. and a few others. You can also do file uploads or folder uploads. If you want to put an entire folder in here, you can. And this is just the option to create new folders. So pricing wise, for more storage, if you do run out of space, I'll click on this to bring it up. Kind of jumps up in tiers. So for $2 a month or $20 a year, you can get an additional 100 gigs of storage space, which is a ton of space. You can add family members to it as well. Then they have one for 2 gigabytes, or 200 gigabytes, which is tons and tons of space. And then it goes all the way up to 2 terabytes, which is about $100 a year, or $10 a month. So 2 terabytes of space. That would be if you were storing. For many people, that's more when you're storing a lot of music and a lot of videos, like full movies, not just not just like these videos. All right, so the next one I want to look at here, this is Microsoft OneDrive. So the top up here might look a little bit different for anybody else that gets in there. I believe I have this set as my personal little toolbar or head bar, or whatever they're calling it. So over here on the left-hand side, you can see I can search my files. I can look in my recycle bin. Google and OneDrive as well have a recycle bin, so they don't necessarily just immediately trash something and it poofs away forever. You do have a little bit of time to recover. So if you accidentally delete something, I believe it's either 30 or 60 days for Google, and the same here for Microsoft OneDrive. And then you have shared libraries. So this is kind of unique. I'm using a corporate version of Microsoft 365. But it can change. So if you are using a home version, you may not have the shared libraries. But if you're using a corporate version, these are super handy because then you don't have to store everything on your own personal OneDrive. You can have access to documents that are shared with a variety of different teams, which is nice. And then your files down here, I can kind of scroll a little bit just so you can see what's there. Mostly it's going to be copies of these videos or their PowerPoints. Up here at the top, I can do new. Because it is a Microsoft product, I can create Microsoft documents from within OneDrive. So there's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, which is their note-taking, forms for Excel, so that I can create actual questionnaires and things like that. If I want to create folders to better organize my file storage, which I have yet to do here, I could do that. If I need to upload anything, I can do files and folders. You can sync. You can do the same thing. You can sync this with a variety of devices. So if you're using OneDrive on a bunch of different devices and maybe have done some offline work and you need to sync, you can do that as well. Google Drive stuff basically syncs anytime there's an internet connection. So if you have been working offline on something, which is an option for certain Google Drive products, it will sync when you get an internet connection again. So pricing wise for Microsoft OneDrive, so you get 5 gigabytes for free for storage, and that's about $2 a month for 100 gigabytes. And then after that, they usually start pushing their actual Microsoft 365 product, which comes with additional storage. So you get either a home or an office version that comes with even more storage, and you'd then have access to the full Microsoft suite, which is nice. Right, now this is Dropbox. Dropbox has been around for quite a while. I know that I used it early on in college, so it's been around since at least 2009, 2005 or so. So there's lots of stuff here. They can store almost any type of file. You get, I believe it is 2 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes, 2 or 5 gigabytes of free storage space. And then there are storage plans. They can go all the way up to 2 terabytes, which is 2,000 gigabytes, and it's just an absolute ton of space. Over here, when you get into it on home, you can see that there's some suggested things based on your activity. This account does not get used very often because this is just one of our test accounts, so it's got pretty limited stuff in it, and it looks like the last time we did anything was 2016, so it's been a minute. But this will show you any recent documents that you've played with, which is nice if you need to kind of just work on the same document several times over. You can also go to all files, which will show you every file that you have stored in the service, which there's a bit more in here than what showed. And then there's shared, so you can share things and work with them kind of live or just send them around so people can kind of multiple people can have access to the same document. any file requests, so people can request access or you can request access, and then your deleted files. So again, there is an option to restore things. So if you do accidentally delete something, you are not out of luck. Over here on the right, you can create new files. It does give you the option to create Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, as well as Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. You can do that within the service. You usually do have to link up your account, those like either Google or Microsoft, just so it has access to make sure that you can, in fact, do those things. You can upload files and folders. You can create a new folder for organization or a new shared folder. So that is a thing. If you would like to share a folder with a group of people, all who are using Dropbox, or even those who aren't, you can do that, and you can create a paper doc, which is kind of a unique thing. This is their word processing service, so you can create something within their word processor. And I'll go over here so you can see, do the compare plans so you guys can see what's going on. So there you go. So there's 2 terabytes. That's kind of your next step up from your free tier to the plans and pricing, so you can see everything. Oh, just starts at 2 terabytes. Okay. So 2 terabytes is the next one. Then it goes up to 3 terabytes, 5 terabytes, and just as much space as possibly needed. So you have all kinds of options there. All right, next up, we've got iCloud. So iCloud is Apple. This is what you're going to use if you have an iPhone, an iPad, iMac, or a Mac computer, any of those things. iCloud is Apple's cloud storage service. And you don't actually have to have an Apple device to use iCloud, but for the most part, that's going to be why you would use iCloud. There's, I believe it is 5 gigabytes of space, possibly a bit more, that you can usually use. There's a recently deleted down here on the bottom. I just kind of honed in on that, so I do want to point that out. So if you do accidentally delete something, again, you do have options. This is generally what it looks like when you pop in. You can see all the different files and things that have been created and added to your iCloud drive. Over here, you can create a new folder. If you need to upload something, that's your upload function. So usually if something is an upload, you'll see either an arrow going up or the cloud with an arrow. And then downloading would be the cloud with a down arrow. So upload is how you put things into the cloud. Download is if you take things off. You have your trash option, so if you need to throw things away. If you want to send a document or share it, you can do that up here as well. So that is iCloud. Again, like most of the other services, there is an option to add more space. If I remember correctly, it is about, I think it's about $2 to do another 100 gigs, much like Google. And then the plans just go up from there. Right, here is Amazon. I did tell you I would kind of go take a peek at this. So Amazon Photos, you have to do some digging to get in and find Amazon Photos. But it is here, and it is an option. You can come in here and store your photos and videos. You get up to 5 gigabytes free, and then you can add in a subscription plan for any more extra space that you may need. And they are full resolution, so they're not going to ask you to lower the resolution, but you do have those options. You can access them in the Amazon app, which is kind of nice, but that's about it. That's Amazon. And then last but not least that I want to show you is Box, or Box.com. This is one that has been also in use for quite a while. This is just sort of the navigation. So you have your all files right now. You can change this to a specific area if you'd like. If you have lots of kind of internal folders and stuff, you can kind of navigate that way with this drop down. Otherwise, it's just right here. You can see your box notes. So that's going to be one of our folders. And then you have all of our other options. Over here on the right, you can upload. So you can add a file or a folder, and then you can do new. So you can create sort of box notes, which is just their kind of word processor or little note-taking app. You have access to Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. You also have Google Docs and Google Sheets. Again, they may ask you to link accounts before they allow you to create those sorts of documents. And then over here on the left is just some general navigation, and again, the trash. So if you do accidentally delete something, you have a certain amount of time before you can, or when you can restore them. Then I'm going to click on Unlock More Storage. So you can see loosely about kind of where you're at in terms of space. You can add, it looks like it's about $10 a month for 100 storage, upload limits. So that is the thing I do want to mention. There are some upload limits of file size. So almost all of these have a certain level where they just cannot handle an upload. So a 5 gigabyte upload limit, that's going to be a feature length movie, or even somewhat larger. So just sort of keep that in mind about how big those files can be. But there you go, just kind of an idea of what it's going to cost to do some extra storage space. All right, you've reached the end, kind of. So I just want to do a quick review, just so some of this stuff stays fresh in your mind. First things first is that cloud storage, kind of what it is basically just a fancy external storage that is provided by various companies. So it's just a way to kind of clean up space on your computers, or to even not have to use computers if you're working primarily from mobile and don't have a good way to store files. Cloud storage is a great way to kind of handle that situation. It's also an excellent way to have more frequent access to your documents, especially if you're on the move. I know it saved me several times when I was attending out-of-state conferences. I just took an iPad with me and had access to all of my documents that I stored there, and any notes that I took there without having to haul a computer with me, which was super handy. And even though we just kind of went through quickly what some of those companies were. Some of the popular companies, so Google with Google Drive, Microsoft with OneDrive, Apple with iCloud, Amazon just does Amazon Photos now. Dropbox is just general storage, and then Box is the same way. They all have subscription services that'll allow you to bump up the amount of storage that you get, but they all also have a free tier of storage space that goes anywhere between 2 gigabytes all the way up to 15 for Google. And they all, except for Amazon Photos, have an app that you can use on your various devices. Amazon Photos doesn't have a standalone app that you should be able to access your photos using just the generic Amazon app. With that, thank you. Thank you for joining me yet again for another one of these videos. I hope I have at least somewhat demystified cloud storage and that you guys are a little bit more comfortable using the various services, or maybe discovered today that you are using them without knowing that you have. I know a lot of people use Google Drive without realizing that it is in fact a cloud storage service, and just kind of increased your level of comfort with storing your files online. So if you enjoyed this video, we would love it if you would tune into some of our future videos. You can find us on Facebook. Just search for MCPL 360. You'll find where we premiere our videos every Tuesday at 2, Wednesday at 1, and Friday at 1. Or you can just find us on YouTube. All of our playlists are there. Just search for the MCPL-Mo channel, and you can kind of hunt and peck for your heart's content for our various playlists, as well as our premieres and any of our past videos. You can find us there. So thank you for joining me, and have a good week.